What's up? What's up, beautiful people? Happy Monday. Happy Monday. It is November 4th. OMG, November 4th. And yes, it's daylight saving time. So that means it is dark now. I'm looking out. So it was a beautiful day today. It was a little chilly. I have on a heater. Now, Handsome Honey may not like that too well, but it's cold. It's like 65 degrees. I'm cold. Okay. So it is fall, but it is a beautiful fall day. It's dark now. So how is the weather where you are? Listen, I am your girl, Coach Deshawn, your marriage communication coach. And welcome to Marriage Mondays. Let's talk TLC. This is where we have starting our week off with real conversations, real talk, real solutions for marriages, 7 years plus in bridging the communication gap. And this month, as we wind down the year, this is holiday season, and many people are dealing with grief, right? Dealing with grief during the holiday season. People actually lose people during this time or whatnot, and it affects you in every which way, even in marriages 7 years plus. How do I know? Because I went through it, still going through it, healing from it, but I am now in a position where I can candidly talk to you and let you know that yes, it may affect your marriage, but your marriage is not over with, right? It's not over with. Now, let me make this disclaimer before we get started. As always let you know that every marriage is different. Every person is different. So you're going to deal with situations differently. So for me, a little backstory of my story. My handsome honey and I, we dated for about a year and a half before we got married, right? And so we were cool, we were good, we were planning the future and all of this. Once he asked me to marry him, we were good. Future plans on deck, just ready to move forward. And then we had our wedding, had our celebration moment, celebration with the family and friends and so forth. It was a beautiful event because it was throughout the year. Awesome, right? Everything that I wanted, just wanted. 3 weeks after we got married, unexpectedly, my mother passed. Had no idea. Did not it, you never plan for death, but like she wasn't sick or anything like that. So we didn't know. And so 3 weeks after we married, I had planned on surprising both our mothers with an anniversary trip, on a cruise. We were going to do a family cruise. And so we were going to have this virtual party, because his parents live out of state. And so we were going to do this virtual party, giving everybody, the 1 year anniversary party, this, that, and the other. And boom, she passed. Now, for some people may say, oh, well, that should have brought you all closer. You shouldn't have had, any problems, or, if you've been together, X, Y, and Z. Could be. Most people did not understand where I was. My position was 3 weeks after I got married, I didn't know if I was supposed to mourn or celebrate, right? Because again, I was in this limbo state. And so no one could really understand where I was. People did deal with death in their marriage, but they were together for years, so they could conquer this part of their life. Here I am, a new wife, remarried, right? And now I'm dealing with all of these emotions wrapped in one. So I did not know if I was supposed to mourn my mother's death and or celebrate my husband, because I just got married. God had blessed me with the new husband. I was excited, X, Y, and Z, but I didn't know how to do that. So guess what happened? It affected our communication. Yes, it did. I can honestly sit here and tell you, and this is the reason why I am your marriage communication coach, because during the season of holiday season and during grief, whichever season you're in, it can affect your marriage. But I'm here to tell you that it will not break up your marriage. Okay. Grief hits everyone differently, and it can make or break communication in a marriage if you allow it to. And so I want to emphasize if, because there was a moment in our relationship, in our marriage, because again, remember, I was brand new. So 3 weeks afterwards, again, I'm in limbo. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Am I supposed to mourn? Am I supposed to celebrate? So I remember telling my husband, I remember standing in the kitchen and tears were just rolling down my eyes. It was probably around this time, around the Thanksgiving, break. And I was like, I don't know where I am. I don't know who I am. So if you want to divorce, if you want to get the marriage annulled, I am all for it. We can do that. And he stood in the kitchen and he said, and he did just like that. He was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, this is different. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to be your wife. I don't know how to be anything right now. So if you want to leave, because he has both of his parents, right? So now I no longer have both of my parents. So now everything is starting to come back. Not only my mother's death, but my father's death. So now I'm dealing with all of this. And so there were moments where it was very weird. And so the communication it was a challenge. It took a hit. It took a huge hit because what happened was I went into a depression mode. So the depression, it consumed me, right? I was no longer that person that he married. In the beginning, I was a different person. I had my mother, I had everything going on. And so now I'm depressed. I'm dealing with depression. Now I'm dealing with not sleeping. I'm dealing with not eating. He doesn't know how to handle this. So everything is brand new for the both of us. And so our communication did take a hit. And what do I mean by that? Means just that it took a hit. I would not talk. I didn't talk. And so, and so you probably said, well, what do you mean? How did y'all not talk? I didn't talk. So as long as I was in his presence, I was fine with knowing that he was there, right? But there was no conversation because every time I would talk to him, I would start to get depressed and I would get sad. I would cry and I didn't know what to do because I'm like, I have my brand new husband and I don't know how to celebrate. I don't know what I'm supposed to do because I was feeling guilty if I did now because I'm supposed to be mourning my mother's death. So I was in limbo. So the communication does take a hit. But I'm here to tell you that you can make it. Your marriage is not over. It is not over. Here we are 7.5 years later, and we're still together. And that's the reason why I can tell you from experience, your marriage is not over. Now, it is a challenge because, again, you're learning how to deal with not just now for us, we had to learn how to deal with being married and grieving. And then, like 2 years after my mother's death, then boom, here's another death. My grandmother. Then boom, a year later, another death. And then boom, another death. So we were hit with death back to back to back to back. So the grievance was there. So that's why I say every marriage is different. Every grief journey is different for everyone. However, we made one day we had to make a challenge. We had to ask each other, what are we going to do? Because we did go through some trials and tribulations. We went through a lot. However, we made a choice to stay together and work through this thing. Okay, so that's why I say your marriage, grief hits everyone differently. Y'all know I got my notes for you, and I forgot to tell you if you don't have your journal, you need to go ahead and get one because I'm giving you some notes. I'm giving you some strategies and tips today to help you through the season of grief and so forth with your marriage, even if it's 7 years plus. it can hit your marriage differently from everyone else. Okay. So, got my water, y'all. So, number one, grief hits everyone differently, and it can make or break communication in your marriage. It's okay to ask for space, but it's also okay to ask for a shoulder. So, what I did in the beginning, I pushed my husband away by not talking because I didn't want to be a burden on him. So, I already felt guilty. That guilt was weighing heavily on me. I was like, oh my gosh, this man married me and now he has to deal with all of this. He's never dealt with that before, right? So for me, I just felt guilty. So instead of me relying on him, instead of me, talking to him, expressing, I had to, I pushed him away. I literally pushed him away from me by shutting down. So I shut the communication down. And with grief therapy, my counselor was like, you're going to have to talk, Jeanette. You're going to have to tell them how you feel. You're going to have to release. And I'm just like, I can't do that. I can't do that. Right. So that was that barrier. That was that communication barrier. So it can make or break your communication in your marriage. However, your marriage is not over. You just have to get to that point where you say, "Listen, let me make this action plan. Let me do something." Your spouse is there for you to lean on. Yes, even 7 years and more, your spouse is there for you to lean on. You were connected for a reason. Rely on your spouse. Okay. Number two, when words feel hard, remember that silence can speak volumes too. Just being present with each other is powerful. So remember, I was saying that the silence. Now, for me, the silence was it was different. It was different. I literally did not talk. It was there were short conversations. There were one word answers for me. He would ask me a question, and I would, just say the bare minimum. I wouldn't talk because at this point I'm like, I don't want to worry him. He's already doing a lot, or we're trying to establish our marriage. I'm really trying to normalize our situation as best as I could, not allowing myself grace, right? Not allowing us that grace. So instead I put more pressure on me, and that's what happens in a relationship. One person may feel like a burden and not rely on their spouse, but you can't do that. You have to break that silence. You have to talk to your partner. Don't go months and days and weeks and years without expressing. You have to express. And during the season, as we wind down the year, memories start popping up. For me, it was holiday season that got very heavy for me in the very beginning, because I'm like, oh my gosh, now I got to deal with all of this, because we were so used to getting together, celebrating, or traveling to where my grandmother them live, or whatnot. So now my new normal is, it's odd, it's weird, it's like, it's different. So I didn't know how to navigate that, just like many other couples don't, right? So you have to rely on each other. It's okay. That's what they're there for. Your partner is there just for you. You're going to go through these trials and tribulations, and you have to rely on each other. Okay. So number two, when words feel hard, remember that silence can speak volumes too, but just being present. So again, don't be silent as to, I'm not going to say anything, but sometimes you can ask your partner for a hug. That's it. I wouldn't even do that. I didn't even ask for a hug. I didn't do any of that. I just continued my life, but I was just silent, right? But that's not the silence that you want. You want to talk. However, your silence, sometimes you don't know what to say. You don't know what to say. But it's okay to ask your spouse for a hug. It's okay to tell your spouse, listen, I'm not I'm not feeling my best today. I don't know what to say. Say something versus not saying anything. Okay. Number three, grief isn't just about loss. Mm-mm. It's about change. All right. Talk to your spouse about how things feel different and let that bring you closer. So, again, going back to not talking, that change. So, in the midst of those first few years, remember, pandemic hit for us. So that meant job losses, job layoffs. So that meant the dynamics of our household changed. And so on top of the deaths. So now and so now we're faced with this worldwide thing, pandemic. And so that's another big change. So now we're both grieving. You know what I'm saying? We're both grieving. And we're both just like, okay, how is this like really like so again, we were navigating through it. And even with grief counseling, it was still, as the counselor was saying, you have to allow it just to flow. You have to allow it, you have to navigate through it. But again, we made that commitment to each other that we're going to try this, we're going to stick it out. Okay. We made that commitment with each other verbally. And we're still here together because, again, we made that commitment. Now, again, it's been a challenge because the grief it was overwhelming. So that's why I said, going back to the first one, grief hits everyone differently. For us, it was literally in the beginning of our marriage. So we didn't have time when we went from dating to 3 weeks of being married, you know, getting used to each other, moving in, and just establishing stuff, changing names and account, all of that stuff. So boom, now I'm planning my mother's funeral, and this is our new normal. So we didn't get a chance to be that husband and wife like so many people did, do in the beginning. A lot of times your trials and tribulations, they hit in the middle of your marriage, like years into your marriage, where you are established with each other. With us, it did not happen like that. And so that's why I emphasize that grief hits every marriage different. Every marriage is different. So it's not going to be like I had a couple of friends who lost parents, but they were already established in their marriage 10, 15 years in. So it was a little bit easier for them to, stay connected and knew how to bridge that communication gap and knew how to navigate through a marriage. With us, it literally was actually it was 2.5 weeks, So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to be a wife and, now be a grieving daughter. So that's why I emphasize every marriage is different. Every grief journey is different. However, what's my favorite line? Your marriage is not over. It's not over. Okay. Number 4, every marriage has its grief language. Every marriage has its grief language. Take the time to understand what your partner needs, whether it's touch, words, or just time together. Now, again, I didn't understand this because I did not talk. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to think. I didn't even want to hug. I didn't. I'm just gonna be honest with you because I had to be honest with my therapist when I went through grief counseling. And so I remember there was an exercise and the counselor asked, and she said, "What is it that you want?" And I said, "I don't know." And I was like, "I don't know." And tears was, I'm like, "I don't know what I want." And she was like, "It's okay. It's okay." She said, "Let it all out." And so, and I remember telling her, I said, "I just want to be a wife. I want to be a good wife, because I was like, I just got married, I want to be a good wife." So here I was piling this extra pressure on myself, not allowing myself to grieve. Because not only that, I was trying to make sure that my family was taken care of. I was still trying to start the business again. And, I was still in my career and so forth. And I remember she had to write me out from work. She had to write me out from work, wrote on my prescription for me to go to Florida or go somewhere with the sunshine. But she said, go to Florida. And she said to go to your favorite coffee shop or somewhere. Do not think about nothing. Go out onto the beach, onto the water. and I want you to relax, and I want you to release. She literally had to write this out because I was like, I don't know where I am, who I am, all of this. I just want to be a good wife to my husband. I just want to do, I want to be a good big sister. I want to be a good, cousin and all of this and so forth. And she was like, you don't know how to handle your grief, and it's okay. So she had to do that for me. And I had to allow her to give me that permission to do it. You understand what I'm saying? So again, it did affect our marriage because my husband now, he's like, I don't understand what all this is. I don't. I don't. you know, and he didn't, because again, he still has his parents. So he had no idea what I was feeling. So when I'm telling him like I feel guilty, he was like, can't help your mom died. So those are the conversations. And he's looking at me like, how are you feeling guilty? Like, what's the deal? So I shut him out. I shut him out. Over the years, I shut him out. I didn't want to touch. I didn't want to hug. I didn't want to talk. So again, you have to know that your spouse's grief language. Let your spouse know what it is that you need at that moment. Is it a hug? Is it just that you want to sit there and just cuddle up? Is it that you want that the words? Do you want your spouse to just talk to you and you just listen? You talk that they could talk to you about anything. Is it just that time together? You know? And so for me, again, I pushed that to the side. I didn't want anything because, again, I was feeling guilty. I did not want to be a burden on my husband. Don't do that. You are supposed to rely on your spouse. Rely on your spouse. Okay. Number 5, healing together doesn't mean you have to grieve the same way. Respecting each other's way of coping is part of the journey. So even though I was grieving literally the physical death of my mother, my grandmother, my aunts, back to back to back, he also had deaths on his side of the family that affected him, but he dealt with it differently. So I was making sure that I be there for him as well. So we were trying to be there for each other over the time, but I had to learn how to respect his grief because he was different in his, it's some aunts and uncles for him. And again, the dynamics were different. However, I had to respect his healing process as well. But we made a commitment with each other and said we're gonna do this thing together. Now, again, we had some bumps. We've had a lot of bumps in this journey. However, when I finally open up and I can speak for myself and I say because again, I had to learn how to take responsibility for my healing. So when I decided to open up and allow him in as my husband, that's when the healing began. We began to see the healing process. And it didn't happen overnight. It's still a process. It is still a process. And that's why, again, 7 years, that's why, again, marriage, 7 years plus, it's okay. Your marriage is going to be different. Your journey is going to be different. Okay. So I'm here to tell you, don't give up on your marriage. Don't give up on the communication. You can bridge that communication gap. You can definitely bridge that communication gap. It's not over. Your marriage is not over. It is not over when things happen in your marriage. You just have to make a commitment with each other. And it's okay. You're going to hit trials and tribulations in your marriage. You're going to do that. But the beauty of it all, you have your partner. You have somebody that you can rock it out with, right? That's the beauty of it. So listen, I hope that, this gave you a little insight and some hope. Thank you, sis. Again, because I'm passionate about making sure people feel and understand that it's okay. It's okay because grief does hit marriages and it hits you differently. It hits you differently. It's not going to be, we just hug and everything is good and my spouse was okay with it. No, he was trying to navigate through me. He was trying to be there for me. He didn't know how to deal with me in a sense. He didn't know what to do because, again, he's never dealt with that. I've never dealt with that. I lost my dad in 94, but I was by myself. I was single. So I didn't, I wasn't married or whatnot. So again, it was just as tough on him as well. But we made a commitment to make it through, and we were going to talk it out. So after grief counseling or whatnot, I had to learn how to open my mouth and talk and share. And it was a challenge. It was a challenge. So I'm here just to encourage someone, especially as we start closing out the year. Holidays coming up. I know a lot of people are dealing with memories that are coming up, celebrations and whatnot. Uh, Talk to your spouse. Talk to your spouse of how you're feeling. Let your spouse know, hey, you know what? Thanksgiving is coming up. You know, this was mom's favorite holiday. I don't know if I feel like celebrating, or Christmas is coming, coming, and uncle, uncle, this was uncle's day where we got a chance to act silly. I don't know if I want to go to the family function this year. I'm just not feeling it. So you want to have that conversation, because again, you don't want to get around during the holidays with other people and so forth. And then that's when the questions come, and then people misread you, and miscommunication and all of that. Talk to your spouse. Bridge that communication gap. Be open, be honest, be transparent with your spouse, and know that it's okay. It's okay. All right. So this month for November, we're going to be talking about tips and strategies, more tips, so that you can build that action plan for your marriage and for you and your spouse. That action plan of like, hey, what do I do if I don't feel like celebrating with my husband's family or my family? What do I do? What do I say? How do I? So we're going to talk about that. Okay. And again, if you have a question that you want me to discuss on Talk It Out Tuesday tomorrow, we're going to talk about our question that we did not get to last week on blended families, which would be awesome. So join me tomorrow here, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we talk it out Tuesday. We're going to talk about that. And again, for this month, as we wrap up the year, we're going to talk about that, navigating grief in your marriage, 7 years plus. So I hope that you have an awesome time. I don't know if I'm gonna end up going to sleep early, but I feel like I need to go to bed early, but no, it's still early. So I got to get adjusted again. But hey, I'm super good on it. I'm glad. And I want you all to make sure that you have a great evening and so forth. And meet me back here tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. So again, let me recap. So again, every number one, grief hits people different. It hits everyone differently, and it can make or break communication in marriage if you allow it to. So I can't emphasize that, if you allow it to. If you do not, say, listen, don't do what I did. Don't push your spouse away. You got to talk. You got to talk it out. Okay. Number two, when words feel hard, remember that silence can speak volumes too. Just being present with each other is powerful. So, again, my silence was not the silence that you need to do. When you're in that silent mode, that's communicate that with your spouse. Grab your spouse's hand and just let them know, I just need a hug. I just need you to just to cuddle with me. Okay. Number three, grief isn't just about loss. It's about change as well. Talk to your spouse about how things feel different, and let that bring you closer. What I tell you, you have to talk. You have to just be honest. Just be honest. Okay. Number four, every marriage has its grief language. Take the time to understand what your partner needs, whether it's touch, words, or just time together. Don't push your partner away. That's why they're there for you. They are there for you. You are there for them, and they are there for you. Okay. And number five, healing together doesn't mean you have to grieve the same way. Respecting each other's way of coping is part of the journey. It is part of the journey. Okay. So again, if you I know many people are dealing with this But it again, if you need someone to talk to, y'all know how to find me. Because I want people to understand, do not let grief overwhelm you in your marriage. It can definitely affect your marriage. It can affect your communication. How do I know? I understand. Okay, that's why I am your marriage communication coach, because I've gone through it, the experiences, healing from it, healed from many of the parts, and still healing through. Grief is an ongoing journey. Okay, I'm not the same as I was back in 2017. 2017, I couldn't even talk to you about without a tear, mentioning mom, mother, or Curl Ann, or anything. I could not even a tear will just form up. Now I'm able to tell people it's okay, especially during holiday season. Holiday season that first year was, oh my gosh, it was horrible. And that's one reason I stopped doing decorations. Y'all know I have this running joke, and for those who understand and know me, they know I love celebrations, right? Even though I was not the designated cook, they wouldn't let me cook, but I could do some decorations, right? I would even have my own gift wrapping paper and so forth. But I did not do a Christmas tree or anything after my mom died. So, but let me give y'all an update. I did ask hubby, did he want a tree? He was like, no, he don't want a tree, right? Now, I love live trees as well, but they are also a lot of work. So y'all know I had my little tabletop tree, right? The little Charlie Brown tabletop tree. So that was like, I've been having that for the last few years because it was a step, you know. So I think I'm going to upgrade. I just have to find one. Trees are expensive, right? They are expensive. Woo. I forgot how expensive they were. So I'm going to upgrade to a taller tabletop tree and so forth. So I am excited about getting back to decorating and so forth, because I used to love decorating my house. And I didn't do all the lights on the house or anything like that, but inside it was festive and so forth. So again, that's part of that journey in your marriage. Even things, all of that, you have to communicate with your spouse. Don't shut your spouse out on anything when it's dealing with grief. You say I have to get adjusted to this time too. I'm not married, but awesome message. I'm taking notes in case God decides to send me someone. Oh, thank you, sis. Thank you so much. Yes, that time. And yes, he will be sending you somebody. I was about to say something. I was thinking about the money too, because I'm so proud of you. You're gonna be sending you that too. You say I love Christmas. I do too. I love the trees. In fact, one year I wanted to the rose gold went into Hobby Lobby. Oh my gosh, I lost my mind. I saw this rose gold tree decorations and all of that. And I was just like, okay, I want to get it. But again, that was in the beginning of my grief stage. And so I just was not ready and so forth. But now I'm ready. I'm good. However, again, talk to your spouse about that, even down to things like that when it comes to holidays and so forth. Talk to your spouse. Okay. So I hope this information, these strategies, these steps could help you. And again, if you're just unsure, connect with me at iamtrinetteLcollier.com for a clarity call. And let's move forward in bridging that communication gap in your marriage 7 years plus. Okay, so until tomorrow, join me 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live right here on YouTube and Facebook. All right. Love y'all. Peace.